This is always an event that I look forward to every year, and it seems like just yesterday we were at Saratoga High School doing this night, right, Brandy? How fast does the year go? Goes so fast. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules. I know that it's a snowy, cold night, so relax, get on your couch, get snuggled in, get some dinner, and just enjoy the next hour and a half to 2 hours where we're here to help you with the college search process. My name is Katie Zelda. I'm the Director of Admissions at Siena College and a proud Siena College graduate. I've been at the college now 18 years, which is crazy to think how fast time flies, but it sure flies when you're having fun. I am doing this from home tonight. So as you go through the college process, if you engage with Siena, you're going to learn that my husband and I have 2 children. They're 5 and 2. Hopefully the future classes of 2037 and 2040, Grace and Thomas. But why I tell you that is you never know if they Zoom bomb. So if you ever see these little heads poke up in the back, that is Grace and Tommy. And certainly I do apologize, but they love coming in, of course, when mommy is working. So they've been told to stay out, so we'll see if it works. But again, thank you. And so for the next 35 to 40 minutes or so, I want to talk to you a lot about the college application process and what you can be doing now as freshmen all the way through juniors. And I'm sure we've got an array of students and families watching this tonight. What you can do now to prepare you for this college process. I think right now when you think about the college process, it seems overwhelming. And normally I would ask for you to tell me some words that come to mind when I say, how are you feeling right now? And I get words like overwhelming, stressed, I can't believe it. A family member saying, how do we get to this point? It seems like just yesterday they were 4 or 5 years old. I promise you this whole process is fun. It may not seem now, but it will be fun and it should be fun. And it's all going to fall into place. And the most important thing is that you're starting now. You're starting to think about the future, which is super, super exciting. And the future for you is going to look different. For everyone, it's going to look different. And there's a college out there for everyone. And that is the key thing to remember as you go through this process, as you work with your amazing guidance staff at Saratoga High School, that there's a college out there for everyone. So as you do your research, it's important about not just finding the right fit, but finding the right fit where you'll graduate in 4 years. So right off the bat, here's lesson number 1. And you want to find a college where you graduate in 4 years. So for families watching this, if I were to ask you, if we were in person right now, I'd say, raise your hands if you want the 5 or 6 year plan. And everyone keeps those hands down, right? We want our students to graduate in 4 years. So that's where finding the right fit, finding that right college will help you find that fit to graduate in 4 years. So as you're researching colleges, as you're visiting colleges, ask them specifically, what is your 4-year graduation rate? Not 5-year, not 6-year, but what is your 4-year graduation rate? And another great thing to ask is, what is your retention rate? Retention rate is the percentage of freshmen that return sophomore year. Easily defined, it's happiness. They like the classes, they like the food, they like the professors, they like the location. They found the right fit. So right off the bat, you want to find the right fit, but you also want to find a place where you're going to graduate in 4 years. So how do you find the right fit? Well, students, this is where it's all about you. And it's really important to sit down and take some time to think about you and what it is you're looking for in the college experience. So I always say it's 3 big things that you're going to think about. The first is your interests. And when it comes to interests, there's a lot of interests out there, but the big ones is your academic interests. So career choice. And right now you may have no idea what you want to do in college or what you want to major in. And my answer to you is that is okay. That is normal. You're 16, you're 17, maybe you're 18 years old. Completely normal to not know what you want to study in. A fun little fact about Siena College, about 1/3 of our incoming freshmen come in what we call undecided, exploring students. They're students who have a lot of interests, a lot of passions, a lot of hobbies. They just don't know specifically what they want to major in. Well, you know what? Come in undecided, try classes amongst all 3 different schools across various majors to find what your interest is. And the best part is you still graduate in 4 years. So the first thing is to sit and think about your interests. What are those classes you're taking right now at high school that you love? What are some clubs that you're in that you love? What are some hobbies? What are some of your passions? All of these are going to help you figure out various majors and programs that may be of interest to you when searching colleges. The next is your abilities. And with that interest conversation, sit down with your family and have it with your family. Family members know you well. Teachers know you well. School counselors know you well. So think about it for yourself personally, but get some insight, get some input from some other people in your life as well. Abilities. When I talk about abilities, I'm talking about your academic abilities. So as I said, there's a college out there for everyone, ranging from the big Ivies that we all know and are familiar with to many schools across the country. They're all amazing schools and there's a fit for everyone. So look at your abilities. Look at how you've done academically over the years. This is where the tool that you guys have access to right at your fingertips, Naviance, is a huge resource. And I know that your school and your guidance staff has spent a lot of time with you on Naviance. But use Naviance as a search tool to see where students with your GPA academic level have gotten into in the past and where it may have been a little bit harder for them to get admitted to in the past. But think about your academic abilities and about those schools that would be the right fit for you. And then I say it's all about your preferences, and preferences are more the demographic. So do you want to be in a school that's in a city, suburban or urban, totally rural, out in the country? Do you want big, small, medium? Do you want all girls? Do you want co-ed? Do you want liberal arts, right? And the list is endless. So that's where I say it's really important to just sit down and get out a piece of paper and just start thinking about things. To help you with this is take advantage of what's in your backyard. So we are so fortunate to live where we live, the Capital District, right? The 518, over 17 colleges, all very different and unique from one another. So spend some time on our websites, take some virtual tours. If the campuses are open, get on the campuses physically to take a look around. And that's going to help you narrow down what type of school you want to look for and that you are going to feel the most comfortable at. So let's talk a little bit about how colleges make decisions. And so every college makes decisions in a very different way. But right off the bat, the first thing I want you to do when you're visiting the various colleges and you're researching the various colleges is get to know the admissions person for Saratoga High School. So you can go onto websites. You can easily go to Indiana.edu, go to the admissions page, and you'll see that Jim Eaton is your admissions counselor. Of course, you always have me as well. If you're looking at University of Tampa down in Florida, you can easily go to their website, type in admissions, and you'll see who the recruiter is for Saratoga High School. So as you research colleges, you're going to have these conversations, but ultimately there are 7 main elements of the application. Now, most of you, my juniors who are going to be starting to apply this summer, August 1st is when the common application goes live. And being a Naviance school, many of you are going to be using the common application. Some may use school-specific applications, which certainly piece of cake, not a problem as well. And these 7 elements are pretty standard across the board for both applications. But elements of the application are the application itself. It's the transcript. We all know what the transcript is. It's the SAT, ACT scores or subject tests. And I'm sure you've been seeing in the news, any of your friends that are seniors now, those SATs and ACT schools for many, many schools have been waived this year due to COVID. And we're starting to see some schools come out with announcements now for next year, for my juniors who are going to be seniors next year. Some schools are coming out with some announcements now with how they're going to be handling the SAT and ACT scores. Personal essays or supplemental essays are an important part of the application. Letters of recommendation are really important. Demonstrated interest, and when I say demonstrated interest, I don't mean major. I mean showing interest in a school. So there's many, many different ways that you can show interest in a school. It's as simple as emailing, as phone call, pick up the phone, engaging with the admissions counselor, doing virtual tours, engaging on their website, visiting if colleges are allowing in-person visits, visiting. So it's showing interest in the school. It's raising your hand saying, I'm interested in Siena College by taking actions with us. And then, of course, those extracurricular activities and involvements. If we were in person, I would have these 7 elements on a big board, and I would have 7 students come up in front of me, in front of the room, and I would have you guys work together as a team over a couple minutes and put in order of importance what you think is the most important to the least important. And there's no right or wrong answer by any stretch of the imagination. All 7 elements are very important pieces of the application, but they're all going to weigh differently at all the different schools that you're looking at. So that's where the communication with the admissions team and the various schools that you're looking at are very, very important. So let's talk about the elements. So the first thing we talked about was the transcript, right? And so curriculum and rigor. So when a student applies to a college, the first thing I look at, so oftentimes this activity transcript is first in that order of importance. And by far, yes, that is the right answer. If you're looking at the Ivies and the elite schools, test scores would be first. But in most cases, that transcript is going to be the most important. And why that is that transcript is your story for the 4 years. It's what you do on a day-to-day basis, starting freshman year all the way through senior year. So my freshmen watching to my juniors, you all can still make impacts now. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. So we look at your transcript, and what we're looking at is the curriculum you've taken over the 4 years and the rigor of the courses. And when I say rigor, I mean the challenge. Are you taking honors? Are you taking AP? Are you taking college prep? All of those are great things, and everyone is at different levels. So don't compare yourself to friends. This is you. This is about finding the right fit. So colleges with transcripts, we're going to look at the curriculum and we're going to look at the rigor. My piece of advice on curriculum is keep challenging yourself over the 4 years. So for my juniors next year, you're going to be thinking about your senior year course load soon. Stick with the math, stick with the science. You're going to take the government, you're going to take the economics, but that's just going to make you a more competitive applicant. Once we look at your classes and the rigor of the classes you've taken, we're going to look at your grades. So how have you done academically? What grade did you earn in Algebra 2? What grade did you learn in your English over your 4 years? So we're going to look at your grades, and some schools are going to look holistically at each year. Some are going to pull out the core classes of math, English, science, history, and language. So every school is different, and that's another conversation you can have. But the transcript is definitely the heart of the application. Standardized test scores. So as you're starting your research, and you're easy can see it in Navient, and you can see it on our websites, but not all schools require standardized test scores. So if we were doing that activity of ranking in order of importance for Siena College, this SAT, ACT scores would be the very last thing. So we're a test optional school. And what that means is that you can apply to Siena College without test scores. The true student is the academics over the 4 years, its involvement, its leadership. A one-day test score isn't indicative of a student's success at Siena. So for us, we're a test optional school. Now there's one big program, our 8-year program with Albany Medical College, that still does require those SAT or ACT scores. But as you're doing your research in Navient and visiting websites, you're going to see there are hundreds of colleges across the country that are test optional. And so in that situation, again, the test scores would be at the very bottom. It would not be a big component to the college making the decision. For those schools that still do require the standardized test scores, you're going to want to research what components they require. SATs, ACTs, I know it's been really challenging with COVID. There's been tests canceled. I know tests are being offered again, but they're bumping students out due to limited space. So I know it's been a challenge. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit on the next slide. Letters of recommendation are really important to us. It's one of my favorite parts of the application. Most schools require a school counselor and or teacher letter of recommendation. And that reason being is these letters tell us how you are as a student, both inside the classroom, inside the school, but outside with the community as well. So it's a really important letter of recommendation. For Siena, we require a school counselor letter of recommendation. And why I love that is because your school counselors know you as a student, but they also know you as a person. And they know how you are in the school. They know the contributions you do inside the school and outside the school. So those are really important letters. We do read them. I'm pretty confident in saying all of my colleagues read them. Now, every school is a little different, and that's a conversation to have with the colleges as you go through the process. But letters of recommendation are really important. And again, we'll touch base on that in a couple minutes as well. We're going to look at your contribution to school and community. So easily defined, it's your activities and it's your involvements, right? It's what you do outside of the classroom. And this is where I always say it's quality, not quantity. So it's everything from clubs and activities to sports, to music, to theater, to volunteer work, to volunteering with your church, teaching religious studies, working. You have a part-time job after school. Maybe it's your responsibility to come home and take care of younger siblings in the family. All of those are forms of extracurricular activities and involvements. And what's so important about this is as you sit down and you start to think and keep track of what you've done, for everyone, this looks very different. Not everyone does clubs and activities, and that's okay. Clubs and activities can be in all different shapes and forms. And so keep that in mind. Personal essay by far is my favorite part of the application, and I bet my colleagues in college admissions will agree with me. And why that personal essay is so important in that college making process is it's a piece of you. It lets us get to know you outside of the application. Now, again, as you're researching schools, as you're visiting schools, you're going to find out if schools require essays or not. Not all schools require essays. Some schools require an essay in addition to additional supplemental essays. But the essay is really important because it's a piece of you. It's unique to you. No one can have the same essay as you because it's a unique story to you. And we'll talk about that in a couple minutes as well. And then we talked about demonstrated interest. And it truly is important. And I think if there's one silver lining and to find within this whole COVID and pandemic we're going through, it's that this virtual world has made things, I don't want to say easier, but they've made things more convenient. And so tonight we're together, right? And Brandy said it earlier, if we were going to be doing it in person, we'd probably have to cancel because of the snow. But schools have totally pivoted and they've totally restructured how they're offering their visits. So schools can have people on campus. Of course, we're opening our doors and we want you on campus. But right now, in the time of the pandemic, we've got to be safe. And that's our number one concern. So many schools, every school has taken their visits and pivoted to a virtual world. And that's where the silver lining is as freshmen all the way through juniors watching tonight. And if there's any seniors on tonight, and if there are, I'd love that you're here. Take advantage of the virtual world out there. On to these virtual sessions that we do. We do information sessions. We do virtual tours. They're very low key. They're relaxed, and you're in the comfort of your own home, your own atmosphere, and you can engage with it. So how can you make a difference? We talked about the elements of the application, what you're going to be working on as you go through the college application process. But what can you do now as freshmen, all the way through juniors and my seniors, to help make that application the strongest application possible and to make you the best applicant possible. And there are several things. And so the first thing is to make those good choices. And we spoke about that earlier, but the classes you take. So stick with the math, stick with the science, continue challenging yourself. If you're in an AP class and you're getting C's or D's, maybe take a step back, have a conversation with your family, have a conversation with your school counselor and say, is AP too hard for me? Do you think maybe I should take a step back and try honors? A couple C's and D's is okay, but a full transcript, you got to take a step back and look at the classes that you're taking. Are they too challenging and too hard for you? So as you start to think about future and the classes that you're taking, continue to challenge yourself. Keep up your grades. So if there's any seniors watching this, senior year matters. Juniors, I think you often hear that junior year is the hardest and junior year is the most important. While junior year is hard and is super important, all 4 years is important. So my freshmen and sophomores watching tonight, keep up the good grades. If you're sitting there and saying, I haven't quite done the ability that I can, I know I can do better. Well, guess what? It's not too late. It's only January 2021. If you're juniors, you still have the rest of the school year and you have the beginning of your senior year to really show the colleges your ability and what you can do. So continue to work hard, continue to get those good classes, get those good grades, and again, work hard. Continue to be involved. So this is where I say it's quality, not quantity. So if you're my junior and you're thinking about, oh my gosh, family, mom, dad, counselor, I'm only doing soccer. That's all I've done. Well, breathe. That's awesome. That shows dedication. It shows perseverance. Maybe next year when you're a senior, you're a captain, and that's going to show leadership. So it's quality, not quantity. So if you have passions that you've been with, if it's music, if it's theater, again, volunteer work, helping your family at home with things around the house with family, all of those are involvements that colleges look at and like to see. And don't think that you need to go and join a million different clubs and activities because you don't. Stick with what you do, and that's going to really show you it's going to show your perseverance. It's going to show you're sticking with it, right? And so that's what colleges like to see. Make relationships. And so I mentioned this earlier, but this one is one of my favorites and why it's so important. Even my freshmen, if there's any freshmen and sophomores watching this, but definitely my juniors, start to make relationships and start with your school. It's obvious, you know, your school counselors, but I bet you may be able to get them and get to know them a little bit better. Remember, they're going to be writing a school counselor letter of recommendation for you for your college application. So juniors, really spend time getting to know them. If you're sitting there thinking, oh, I don't really know my counselor well, put on a meeting, say hello, let them get to know you. So as you do this process together, they're able to really put a nice letter together for you. And I've got to tell you, in my 18 years, Saratoga writes some amazing letters of recommendation. You guys have a great school counseling team. And next week is School Counselor Appreciation Week. So they work hard and they're an amazing team for sure. The second relationship I want to make sure that everyone creates is with the colleges. And so I said I've been doing this for 18 years. I wouldn't be doing this for 18 years if I didn't love it. And I bet if you talk to my colleagues tonight who are on after this, many of them have been in the business for a long time as well. We do it because we love you, and we do it because we love this process, and it's a fun and it's an exciting process. So pick up the phone, send us an email, and get to know us. So as you navigate this process, as questions come up, if there's a hiccup in the road and you need to figure out a question about your application, you have a person at each school that you're visiting. Don't be shy about it. Don't be worried about it. We are very approachable people. We're in it because we love we love what we do. So get to know us. So for every school you're looking at, there's two people you need to know. You need to know who your admissions counselor is, and you need to know who your financial aid counselor is. Together, admissions and financial aid work closely as a team. Every school does it a little bit different, but if you know those two people, who they are for you at each school, I promise you're going to be in great shape, and they're going to work with you and make this a smooth, easy process. Create an admissions email and folder. So if you haven't done this already, quick drink break, sorry, quick water. If you haven't done this already, I suggest you do it. So create a very simple professional email that you use for the college search process. katiezalda@gmail.com. kzalda@yahoo.com. Keep it very simple, very professional. You can maybe add your birthday in it. You can maybe add your class year in it. But keep it simple. I could write a really funny book on some of the emails that I've read over my years. So do a professional email. Use that email for when you engage with colleges. So as you sign up for mailing lists, when you register for virtual visits, use that email. So that becomes the way that we communicate with you. And then in that email, create folders for each school. So Siena, St. Rose, Union, SUNY Albany, Skidmore. As you start to get communications from us, simply put those communications in the folders. You're going to find that it helps you be very organized. I'm old school, so I like my notebooks and my paper, but I know you guys are technology, right? It's your phone, it's your laptops, it's your Chromebooks, it's your computer. So do what works best for you, what you find easiest, for sure. But again, that admissions professional email and then folders for organizing will just make this very simple for you. Take advantage. I mentioned a silver lining of the pandemic. Take advantage of visiting virtually. So I know, for example, Siena, on the weekends and every weeknight, 6 and 7, we do virtual tours. A virtual tour doesn't sound very exciting, but it is. It's live students who are your hosts, and they physically walk you through campus over the computer, but you're seeing the campus buildings. There's fun videos, it's very engaging, and we keep them very small. So typically it's one tour guide to 1 or 2 students and the families, and it's all done remotely through the virtual, through the computer, so it's very safe. But what's cool about it is yes, you're getting a tour, you're home, so you're comfortable, but you're hearing from a current student. So you're hearing what life is like as a saint. You're hearing how the food is. You're hearing how the classes are, the professors, what the social life is like. And that's really important. We're not alone in doing that. Many colleges are offering virtual tours. We have to figure out how to work with you through this pandemic, and we're using our tour guides to do it. So take advantage of visiting virtually. Many schools are doing virtual open houses, or they're doing nights where you can log in and simply just relax and listen to professors about various majors, listen to students and what life is like at their school. Many schools do financial aid nights where you learn about the financial aid process and get questions answered that you have. So again, take advantage of those. Those are all, we keep track of who visits, so that's a form of showing interest, right? And I mentioned demonstrated interest is something that's so important in the process. The next question, the next thing is a notebook. What to do now? So grab a notebook. And I think if you were to talk to your friends who are seniors and you ask them the hardest part about this process, I bet out of 10 friends, you're going to get 9 answers that are the same. And that's going to be the essay. I think the essay is the hardest part of the college application because it's the one part you got to start from scratch. You have to think about the topic. You have to think about what you're going to write about. How am I going to stand out? How's it going to be unique? So I often say, grab a piece of paper or a notebook. And in that notebook, you have it in your backpack. You have it in your purse, wherever, and keep track. You meet someone cool. You have a cool lesson that day in school. You learn something like blew your mind. You go on a trip with your family and really cool memory. You meet someone along the way. You're reading a book and there's a really cool quote that you love. just jot things down. Keep simple notes of things that just really make you stop and go, wow. And that's a really good starting point for when you're a senior to think about a college essay. So that's where I always say, just keep a notebook or a piece of paper just to start thinking about things. Family members, you can do the same as well. Sometimes it's a group effort where you sit down and really try to think about what that best essay topic is. But my piece of advice on the college essay, that the best essays are the simplest essays. So we're looking to get to know you. It doesn't have to be huge. It doesn't have to be profound. It's quick. It's 2 pages, double space, but it's a piece about you. So some of my favorite essays I've read over the past, and I've read many, many, many of them. One was a young lady who grandma has an award-winning chocolate chip cookie recipe, and she simply told us how those cookies brought the family together around the table. Another was a gentleman who volunteers at a senior citizen home and a guy named Freddie had a really big impact on him. So he taught us the lesson that Freddie taught him. Another was a student who is tall, very tall. They were over 6.5. Also, what their worldview was and the view that they have from their height. Super cute and fun. So again, very simple essays, lighthearted, but it allowed us to get to know the student for sure. Explore online resources. So there's the obvious, there's the websites of all the colleges, which definitely use that as a starting point. Use Naviance. Naviance is an amazing tool. I know I spoke about it earlier. I know the school counselors have spent a lot of time with you as well in terms of what Naviance is, but use Naviance. Use the College Board website. There's a great website called CapEx. There's a website called Niche, N-I-C-H-E, all different forums that you can go on and just start to explore this college process. Then I always say, take advantage of your family and friends. You know people who are going through the process, who have just gone through it. So get in their ears, find out what worked for them. What are some pieces of advice they have for you? And I think the most important is to have fun. It's overwhelming. It can be overwhelming, but it's meant to be a lot of fun. And as long as you're taking the good classes, you're working to the best of your ability, and you're doing well, you're going to find a college that's the right fit for you, for sure. So I always say, keep calm and have fun. This is my email and my direct phone number in my office. So please take it, 782-6767. If you call it, I will pick up the phone for sure. I love engaging with families and students for sure. And then, of course, follow us on all the social platforms. And then we have an awesome blog, admissionsblog.siena.edu, that we'd love for you to join. Everything from how to make the best of a visit to hearing from current students to how to make a great college essay. Use it certainly to your resource. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And then I want to pull it up to questions, and I'm open for questions. What is on your mind? To ask a question, use the chat box. Make sure you address it to all panelists. And so take your questions that you have for me, put it to all panelists. You can also do it to me privately. I have a couple in there that are private to me, and I'm going to certainly answer them as well. So the first question I have is that the kids are, and this is a really hard part, right? This is not a silver lining of the pandemic. This is a challenge, but there are ways you can do it. So the question is that the kids are barely in school. How can they develop relationships with counselors? You've gone through this with an older child, and it's a very different time. And yes, it's a very different time. It's not only different for you, it's different for us, it's different for the school counselors, it's different for everyone. So relationships can be done over Zoom conversations. Relationships can be done over email. Relationships can be done over phone calls, right? Schedule time to pick up the phone and call. One of my favorite things that we do, and we've always done it, but I think more so now with the pandemic, I'm doing more of them. It's interviews, and it's interviewing prospective students, and they're done virtually, so they're very safe. You do it from home. We do them during the day. We do them at night as well when it's convenient for students. And the same goes for school counselors. They want to work with you. They want to get to know you. So, send them an email. Can we set up a quick 10 minutes to talk, 15 minutes to talk, and get to know them? It doesn't have to just be face-to-face. It can be phone call. It can be an email, for sure, and get to know them. So I know that the pandemic and doing the hybrid blending of in-person and remote is a challenge. It's hard, 100%. And just keep doing what you're doing and keep asking those questions. You guys have an amazing, amazing guidance team.
Can I jump in there for a second, Katie?
Please, Brandy, please.
I just want to remind our families, because I know especially our freshman families, they don't realize that we meet with all of our students every single year individually. And we spend, a good fair amount of time, especially for our junior conference, it's like an hour long. And we go through some questions with our students to really get to know them better and let them know anytime they have any questions or they want to meet or chat to just reach out to us, and we'd be happy to meet with them, even in addition to that individual meeting. Thank you.
For sure. For sure. The next question is, can you use the same essay for all colleges? And that answer is yes, right? And so with the Common Application, and you can go research now. So if you go to the Common Application website, you can even simply Google Common Application College Essay Questions. You're going to see that there are 7 questions. Choose one now that maybe is of interest to you and start brainstorming topics and keep it in the back of your mind as you write in that notebook. And very rarely sometimes the topics change a little bit, but nothing extreme. And there's always the topic of tell us what you want to tell us. So yes, you can use the same essay for all colleges. My caveat to you, and something to be careful of, is some students like to make the essay specific to colleges. So I've read essays where students put college names in and they're applying to Siena and they don't have the name Siena College in there. So just be wary of that and be extra cautious of that, that if you are applying to schools and you're going to call out the school, make sure you change it for every single school you apply to. Some schools I mentioned are going to require supplemental essay. So for example, at Siena, you apply with the Common App. You can apply with one of the 7 essay topics of your choice. But then if you apply to our 8-year medical college program, you have to write an additional essay. If you're interested in our honors program, if you're interested in our Bonner program. So some specific programs will require additional essays. And as you research your schools, as you start to apply, you're going to see very easily who the schools are that will require additional essays and what those questions are. The next question is, where can we learn about available scholarships? So website is a great starting point. I know that we are constantly updating our websites in terms of financial aid, scholarships. All colleges, as mandated by the government, is required to have a net price calculator on their website. And what that does will give you a general idea. Now, it's not going to be a specific 100% here it is, but it'll give you a general idea of what it would cost for a student to go to that school. They ask you some simple information, income, some academic questions, and it puts together a very general financial aid package. So utilize that net price calculator just to get an idea of what the cost could be. But available scholarships are on all of our websites. And then if you make a relationship with a financial aid counselor, you can also pick up the phone or email them and ask them from available scholarships as well. The next question is, what is a good minimum 4-year graduation rate to look for, and same for retention rate? That's a great question. I love that. So national averages for publics is about 40%. For privates, it's about 55%. Now our 4-year graduation rate at Siena is 75%, and it's something we aim to increase every year. Our retention rate is 90%. So 90% of our students return for sophomore year. That national average is between 70 to 75%. And again, questions that all colleges will give you. Many of us have it on our website. Just something to ask and have conversation with the admissions counselors as you're getting to know them. The next question is, what do you look for in an interest email? So I love that. And I think email is a platform that we all use. It's convenient, but it's also the ability for us to take our thoughts and put it down onto paper. And in an interest email, I'm just looking to get to know the student. Tell me a little bit about you. Why are you interested in Siena? Is it a specific major? Is it a certain club? Is it something else that we offer? But it's really just getting to know a little bit about you. And then that just helps build the relationship. And then it'll continue to go from there. So if you email me, I'm not just going to read it, reply once and be done. We're going to continue to engage. We're going to continue to have a conversation where we can get to know you. And I feel confident on that with many colleges. Every college hands their emails a little bit differently and how the admissions counselors respond. But really the interest email is just introducing yourself and letting us know that you're interested in that school. And you bring up a great point, is especially if you're looking at a school down south, or maybe you want to go out west, you want to go out to the west coast of California. Right now, it's really hard to get out there and visit, right? Again, virtual is great, and that's a great way to take advantage of getting to see the campuses and showing your interest. But picking up the phone or sending an email to that specific admissions counselor, remember I said you want to research who that admissions counselor is for your schools, will really be a benefit and will play a really strong role in this process as you go through it. So don't get too caught up on what that email has to say. Just let it flow freely as you type it out, and simply just introduce yourself, your interest in the university, and why it is you're interested in that university. Is a specific program, a family connection, a club, maybe it's theater, maybe it's Korean School of Music and you play the clarinet. So you really want to go there for that. It's different for every school and student. The next question is the application process the same for students who started a community college and then transfer for a four-year institution? So it's a little bit different for transfer students, and every college handles transfer students a little bit differently. So again, you'll want to, excuse me, pick up the phone or send an email to the transfer counselor. So just like high schools have students who recruit their high schools, we have transfer recruiters. So for Sienna, it's Jennifer Sloan. She's our transfer recruiter. And they work with you individually. It's very similar in this fact that you're going to have an application. Depending on how many years you've been out of high school, we may require a final high school transcript to show us your high school career. You would want to send us transcripts of any of the colleges you've been enrolled at previously. And then in some cases, there may be an essay. No school counselor recommendation required for that. What most schools require is a recommendation from the college that you're leaving in academic good standing. So it's a little bit different, but the same elements and concepts are pretty much the same. But again, there's going to be a transfer counselor who's going to work with you every step of the way. The next question is, how are you looking at applications differently with COVID? And that's the $1 million question, right? COVID has been hard. COVID has been challenging for everyone. I think everyone is excited that it's 2021. We're excited to put COVID in the rearview mirror, but we're not there yet. And we still got some ways to go. And I know for my juniors who are watching this, your sophomore year ended remote. So your spring of your sophomore year is going to be remote. And now your junior year is remote. For my seniors, right? Your junior year ended remote, and now your senior year. So it's been hard. And I know that remote learning was hard. Working from home for those couple of months with the 2 and 5 year olds, very hard and challenging, but we worked together, we figured it out. And that's the best that you can do, is just figure it out. So my piece of advice to use with COVID is to be honest with the colleges. So the Common Application has created a section that says, is there anything you want the colleges to know? And it's specific to COVID-19. So any impacts on your family, anything that we need to know. And I'm seeing a lot of information there. I'm seeing information. Some students will talk to us about how remote learning has been very challenging for them. Many students have had death of family members and relatives, loss of jobs. So COVID has certainly been hard. It's been a challenge. And I think what we've been able to do, and this is Sienna specifically, is and it's a beauty of being a small school, is that we look at every applicant individually. And so we are sitting down, we are reading every application individually. We're reading essays, we're reading those specific additions to the application regarding to COVID, and taking all of that into consideration. So as you continue this process, as you're looking at colleges, ask them, how are you reviewing applications with COVID? So I'll tell you, I still want to see the good classes. I still want to see that you're challenging yourself. I do understand that remote learning is very different than in-class learning. I understand that taking a science lab is very different remotely than in person. So all of that is taken into consideration. But the most important thing is that you continue to take the classes, that you still apply yourself, you still engage with the teachers, you still engage in the classroom, and try to do the best that you can. Someone says, you mentioned something using University of Tampa as an example. Someone wants to go to Tampa. I love it. Could you please repeat what you said? Absolutely. So my example with Tampa was, it's hard to get on a plane right now and go visit Tampa, right? So to show interest in schools that may be down south, maybe out on the West Coast, California, take advantage of emails, take advantage of the phone. I can't tell you, and I know that it's not our favorite way to communicate it, but I love phone calls, right? It's one of my favorite things. So pick up the phone and introduce yourself. Let the admissions counselors know that you're interested in their school. All of that is forms of interest. So again, if you're looking at Tampa down in Florida or somewhere where you can't get to, just write a very simple email to the admissions counselor. You can find our emails right on the websites, on all of our admissions pages, and just introduce yourself. It goes a long, long way, and it just starts the relationship as you go through this process. The next question is, how would you make up for an inconsistent transcript in your application? And so for medical reasons, and 100%. And inconsistent transcripts can be for medical reasons. It can be for COVID. It can be for many, many reasons. And I think that the best thing you can do in that situation is let us know what happened. And there's several ways you can do that. On the common application, there is a section that says, is there additional information you want to tell us? And you can let us know there. Your school counselor will probably, if you give them permission, can tell us a little bit there. Any teachers that write recommendations for you, maybe it was their class specifically that you struggled with, and if you give them permission, they could say it there. But I think the most powerful thing you can do for yourself is you research the colleges, as you list out the colleges you want to apply to, see what colleges offer interviews. And I hate using the word interviews. It's more of a conversation, right? It's casual. It's with me or one of my teammates in admissions for 30 minutes, and it's nothing to get nervous about. But what that allows you to do is to say, okay, here's what happened. I got sick. I got injured playing in a game. My parents got divorced. A family member passed away because of COVID. All of these things are going to impact us. We're human. Things happen 100%, but tell us what happened so then we know what we're looking at. So if we're looking at a transcript, and we do it often, and I do it with Saratoga, right? It's the beauty of our relationship with them. It's a great team. If I'm reading an applicant from Saratoga and they had a really shaky sophomore year, but freshman and junior year were great, I'm going to know something happened sophomore year. So I may pick up the phone and say, hey, Brandy, I know you can't tell me much, but what's going on here? And then I'm going to pick up the phone. I'm going to call you, the student, and I'm going to say, let's schedule an interview. I'd love to get to know you. So advocate for yourself is the long answer to that question, but advocate for yourself. Take advantage of interviews if schools offer them, and use the section of the common application that says to give us any additional information that you want us to know. All right, another question is, how early should you reach out and request interviews and college visits post-COVID, right? We're so ready for post-COVID. I can't wait. Once your child has identified a few schools of interest. So current COVID, take advantage of virtual, right? We already talked about that, but you already got a couple schools of interest. Jump onto those websites over the weekend, start to map out some virtual visits that you can engage with, whether it's tours, whether it's information sessions, all different types of opportunities. To request interviews, I would wait until end of your junior year to summer of going into your senior year to beginning of your senior year. You don't want it to be too early because this interview is part of your application. So you want to make sure you've had a lot of your academic foundation completed so it can be part of your interview. So I always say the best time is summer and beginning of your senior year. Depending on the school's deadlines, some interviews may be done with admissions, some may be done with current students, some may be done with alumni. Schools offer all different types of interviews, but keep track of when their deadlines are because you want to make sure that those interviews are complete by the deadline so that it can be part of the application. And then in terms of visits, take advantage of virtual. I said that. But then post-COVID, fingers crossed, if you've been to the campus, you know that there's a grotto behind our admissions building. I light candles, hoping that we can start to open our campus to visit shortly. And so post-COVID, take advantage. We're putting right on our website if our campus is open to visitors. I know right now a lot of schools are focusing on the admitted senior, and then once we can get more visits on campus, we're going to get the juniors and everyone in. But summer is a really good time. And what's nice about summer is that things are outdoors. So you could take advantage of the outdoors, of the warm weather, taking tours with students. The one downfall is that students aren't always on campus during the summer, but we'll get you back in the fall for the open houses for sure. If you reach out to a school via Naviance expressing an interest, does that school have access to your SAT scores on College Board or Naviance? No, we do not. And Brandy, I'm going to have you confirm that. Not at Siena. I know we don't, but if you reach out to school via Naviance to show interest, we do not go in and grab your test scores or ACT scores. No.
And we do not we don't include them on any transcripts or documents through Naviance that we send to colleges either.
Yep. And I think now with so many schools being test optional, that's you guys are extra cautious on that, right? Of not sending that information at all.
Yeah. And we ask the families to send those scores directly through College Board and through ACT.
Yep. All
right.
Any other questions? This was fun.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. You always do such an amazing job. We can't thank you enough, especially on this snowy evening, helping us out and all of our families. And thank you to all the families who attended. One more thing I just want to
Yes.
make sure you guys know about scholarships. We post scholarships that come through the high school. We get many organizations through the community that that advertise for different scholarships. We actually have several junior scholarships that are available and are coming through around the springtime. And we also have many, many senior ones, and those are all posted on Naviance. We put them on a bulletin board that the students can see if they're in the building, right across the hall from our office. And we also have them posted in the counselor, our monthly newsletter that we send to our families. So, all right. Thank you, Katie. I don't think we have any other. Oh, there's one more question. How do you handle non-weighted transcripts? That's a good question.
Yeah. Non-weighted transcripts for us is normal, right? I think what we do is we look at the core classes. So when we get a transcript, we're going to look at the core areas of math, English, science, history, and language. We're going to see your overall GPA as reported on the transcript, but then we're going to break it out for core curriculums of math, English, science, history, and language. Of course, we're going to see if you're an AP, we're going to see if you're an honor. All of that is taken into consideration and part of the application review when we're looking at the transcript. So having unweighted transcripts is okay, for sure.
And we will talk more about that in our transcript review
That's right.
workshop in a few minutes. We also had somebody ask, if you're interested in playing a sport, do we contact the coach directly after some interest in the school?
Yeah. So D1 and 2, reach out to the coaches directly, and they'll work with you on that whole process. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. All right, everyone. We are going to stop recording now, and we are going to take about a 12-minute break. We are going to be having our next workshop, which is reviewing transcripts during a pandemic, but our panelists tonight are also going to go just through the general transcript review process as well. Tonight we have Matt Cohen from Skidmore College. He's the Senior Associate Director of Admissions. We have Matt Stabler from the College of St. Rose. He is the Associate Director of Admissions. And Daniel Halt, who is an admissions counselor from University at Albany. I just want to remind our participants tonight to please make sure you will hold your questions on the chat until the end. And to also make sure when you put questions on the chat that you put them through to everyone, to all panelists, so everybody can see them. All right, we'll let you guys take it away. Thank you.
Randy. So I guess we can go ahead and get started. Shortly, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen as we kind of dive into the transcript review. But I can certainly get started and talk a little bit about the university, but University at Albany. But just as a little bit of background on myself, I am also an alumna of UAlbany. I grew up Long Island, New York, and I came up to UAlbany for both my undergraduate and my graduate degree. I worked in a couple different offices on campus, including student activities and our career services office, and now I'm excited to be over in the team of admissions. So just to kind of quickly give an overview of what transcript review is like at UAlbany, and of course with the pandemic, we certainly recognize for our juniors and seniors who it's impacting the most that they might have had some struggles. So I think one of the biggest things is that we are recognizing that, and we're kind of offering some leniency in how we review the transcript, and I think you'll see that when we go into a little bit of a deeper dive. But something also to note is that the University at Albany has gone test optional for the fall 2021 and the spring 2022 semesters. So for the current juniors that might be coming in the fall of 2022, at this time we don't have any kind of word yet of what our test optional or testing policy is going to look like, but we do hope that we can kind of be consistent with what we've done at least this cycle. But just to kind of give a little bit more information, we have a research analyst in our office who collected data over the last 10 years from all high schools in New York, and really kind of condensed that data to be able to evaluate a student based off of, what the pandemic has kind of presented to us and those challenges. And so although students might not be submitting their SAT and ACT scores, this data will kind of give us a good predictor of whether the student will be successful at the University at Albany. And so what we have done is, with all of that information, we've come up with what's called an adjusted GPA based off of each high school. So students like you who attend Saratoga High School, we recognize that your courses might be a little bit more challenging than a student at another high school. And so we're sure to kind of evaluate you based off of that. And so that's kind of what we've been doing in terms of the pandemic. Again, we'll kind of go in a little bit more into depth when we review the specific transcripts. But again, we know that it's been a challenge for some of our students and families alike. And we are here to support you through the process. So I'll go ahead and pass it over to either one of the Matts, whoever wants to go next.
I don't mind going next, Matt, or do you want to go?
Go ahead.
Thanks, Matt. So good evening, everybody. Thank you for being here tonight. So it's great to be here again. It's nice to be doing this from home instead of maybe traveling on the Northway with the weather that we got right now. But it's great that we can do this event this evening. So my name's Matthew from the College of St. Rose. Been in admissions now for over 12 years, and with the review process at St. Rose, some things have stayed the same and some things have definitely changed in this pandemic period that we're in right now. So our average GPA for an accepted student is around that kind of B+, A- student, that kind of high 80s, low 90s. We're looking for the 4 core credits of English, 4 social studies, and then 3 of math, sciences, and foreign languages. On test scores, we're actually test optional. We've been that way for probably about 8 or 9 years now, I believe. But students that do submit test scores, the average SAT is somewhere in that kind of 1050 to 1150 range, where around 50% of our students will fall. And on the ACT, our average is around a 23. And then when we were looking at our file review for this year, we definitely had to kind of revisit our approach with the coronavirus and everything that's affecting. So definitely looking at the grades that have been attained within this period, the grades from the spring semester and now into the fall. Looking at evidence and comparing that to how the student was performing before the coronavirus, how their first year, second year, etc. were going in high school before the pandemic hit. And then we're looking for those indicators that something may have happened, something may have adjusted. And then kind of, as Danielle said, that's when you kind of start to do that deeper dive. You're looking a little closer at those letters of recommendation that are sent in from the school counsellors, and also the essays from the students themselves. We've found a lot of students have taken advantage of the opportunity in the essay, but also in the additional supplemental information to kind of speak about how they are coping with the coronavirus, how they're doing with remote schooling, how they're still managing to interact with their teachers and their friends. And so those essays, those letters of recommendation have definitely been extremely valuable. They're very valuable anyway, but in this kind of time that we're in now, that's that kind of further information that really helps us with our file review process. That's about all I wanted to say about our file review process. So I'll hand over to Matt.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everybody. I'm Matt Cohen from Skidmore. I'm originally from Rockland County, New York, downstate, but this is my 21st year at Skidmore. Been there since 2000. And I am very familiar with Saratoga Springs High School transcripts because I am the father of 2 Saratoga High School graduates, as well as a current senior. So I've seen a bunch of them come in the mail. And aside from my role in admissions, I certainly know the setup. So we are also a test optional school, not quite as long as St. Rose, but I think this will be our 6th year as a test optional school. So we are certainly comfortable with reviewing applications in the absence of testing and relying mostly on the transcript. Our own data shows very, very clearly that Skidmore GPAs correlate so much more closely to high school transcripts than they do to standardized testing anyway, which is part of the reason why we made the break 6 years ago. So if many of you may not have had the chance to take the test or may wind up taking it fewer times than you may have wanted to, don't worry. We are used to reading without them in general. For those who do submit them, our average score submits for the SAT is a 1310 and for the ACT is a 30. Now, what we will do is take a very close look at a document that will be included with all of your applications, whether they're to Skidmore or any other college, called the School Profile, which is a complete and pretty thorough listing of all the courses that are available to you. So what we will do is take a look at your transcript and see what you took relative to offerings at your own school. So we read high schools from around the country and around the world. We will not compare your program to other high schools. What we will do is take a very close look at what's been available to you and then what you decided to take. Now, what it does not mean in our case is you don't have to be AP everything to get into Skidmore. If you hate math, we may not see AP calculus on that transcript, and we'd be okay with that. But when those higher level courses are offered, and if you are looking at schools with competitive acceptance rates, they are fully going to expect you to be in some of them. I always say I'd rather see you get a B in a tough class than an A in an easy one. So again, you don't have to load up top level on everything, but certainly when those different levels of classes are available, that is actually the very first thing that we look at. So we would sooner admit a student with an 87 average in tough classes than a student with a 97 average without them. So we'll go into more detail when we look at the two transcripts, but the two that we've selected do show different programs in terms of level of difficulty. And when it's my turn to talk about them, I'll reiterate this point to show when some applicants can be successful and when some of them might be more of a wait list or a deny. One more thing I'd like to say actually before we go into the transcript review, I've been asked by the guidance staff to explain some different grading that you may see on your transcripts that correlates to these COVID semesters. As you are aware, Saratoga High School uses the traditional 0 to 100 scale, but because of remote learning and because of COVID and its interruptions, they've added a series of codes that will replace grades at times. And what those are, and you'll see them on one of the transcripts, they're two-letter codes. One of them is called ED, which means evidence of learning with distinction, which is a way of saying you did really well in that class, but because of the interruptions, we're going to abandon the standardized grading, at least for the time being. Following that, you could see EL, which shows evidence of learning, so still solid performance, but not quite as good as that ED for evidence of distinction. It does go down to LE, which shows limited evidence of learning, and then also NE, which shows no evidence of learning. So if you see those grades show up on your transcript, first of all, don't worry, we know what they mean. And even in a non-COVID year, we sometimes see schools that have very different grading systems. Some only give narratives and don't give grades at all. Some have always given grades like this. So don't worry if parts of your transcript look a little different. College admissions offices are used to different kinds of grading systems and will be able to handle them quite well. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Matt. And I will go ahead and share my screen now. So what I'm going to do is pull up both of the transcripts, and we'll kind of go in that same order and talk about again what our thoughts are about those two transcripts. So hope everyone can see that. Okay. Yep. Okay. So I'll probably just scroll down a little bit so that we can all see it. And as Matt noted, some of the codes are down here, but if you need us to reiterate what those meanings are, we can certainly do so as well. So I guess I'll kind of start and talk about this first transcript here and how, here at UAlbany, we would evaluate it. And so the first thing that we're really going to take a look at is this top right corner here, you see the unweighted and the weighted GPA. At UAlbany, typically we take the higher of those two, which would, in this case, be the weighted GPA. So as you can see, the weighted GPA of the student is an 85.64, and we round to the first decimal place, so that would come out to an 85.6. So when you are talking about a student of this type, I would say for just the first look in terms of the GPA, they might be on the fence for UAlbany. Typically, I actually didn't mention this in my introduction. Our mid-range GPA is around an 89 to a 95 or so. So that's that mid 50th percentile of students that have been accepted into UAlbany, specifically last year. So this student with an 85, I think, would probably fall right on the cusp. So not necessarily that they wouldn't get into UAlbany, but they might be put on our wait list. Or if they applied early action, which we do offer, they might get deferred to regular admission. So as I kind of look through this transcript, something that I believe I heard Katie talking about earlier in the first session was that us as admissions counselors, we're really looking for somewhat of an upward trend from grade 9 through grade 12. And so what that means is that, maybe if grade 9 started out a little rocky, you've done what you can to perfect your performance and perform better over the course of your high school experience. And so something that I do notice for this student is that going into grade 12, given, of course, everything looks a little bit different now with COVID, but they did have a slight decline in their performance. And so, again, as I mentioned earlier, this is something that we are taking into consideration. Again, we might look at this transcript a little bit differently, see that they performed in the mid 80s in most of their classes junior year, which is something strong, but in senior year, that's something a little bit more concerning to maybe a college admissions counselor. And so something also that I would take away from this transcript is, and I think Matt Cohen did a great job of explaining it, that we want students to take challenging courses if they are available to them. So just from a look at the student's transcript, they might not have necessarily challenged themselves in some of the advanced courses that are available to them. So I would have liked to maybe see 1 or 2 of those courses in their junior or senior year. Again, they don't have to load it up with 3 or 4 AP courses or college level courses, but if they would have taken 1 or 2, that's something that I would like to see as well. So again, I think this student is kind of right on the cusp. Again, they might be a waitlisted student, or if they, depending on what the rest of their application looks like with their essay and their letters of recommendation, that could potentially put them over the edge. But I think if we're just basing this student on their high school transcript, again, there's some things to kind of point out that I think are important. So that's kind of my take on the transcript, and I'll pass it along to my colleagues.
We could go in the same order again. Matt, if you want to go ahead, that would be fine.
Excellent. Thank you, Matt. Oh, a nice review there of the transcript. I'll pull out a couple of other things that I noticed, so hopefully we're not repeating too much between the three of us. So yeah, in general, we can see that the student's GPA is overall improved from 9th grade through to 11th grade, but then yes, that drop off into 12th grade. And then that's what we would start to look at a little bit closer. I think under different times, we would be kind of like rolling our eyes and wondering if this is senioritis that has started to take effect. The student may have started to slack off, but obviously with the pandemic, we're wondering, well, is the student struggling, in their senior year with the remote learning, the adjustments and everything? There may be other things going on at home with the student that, as an admissions counselor, I may not know about. But obviously there's like a 6.8 drop in the GPA, so that's something that we'd pay attention to. The classes where the scores, the grades have dropped down tend to be more of those academic classes. One was a university and high school class. but which is obviously a little bit harder for a student. But those grades in the 70s are definitely a little bit concerning. But then also we're going to start to look at how they compare with they've been doing in their other years, and what their grades are in their core subjects. At St. Rose, we like to get back to those core areas of math, English, science, social studies, and the languages, particularly like math and English, those kind of core areas. The math GPA is around a 79, English GPA is around 88, almost an 89. Science GPA around an 84, social studies GPA around an 85. So you can see that the student is their GPA is kind of reflective of their overall GPA, which is good, but just on the math side, a little bit weaker. We're going to look at some of those electives that they've been taking. Something that I like to do as an admissions counsellor is try and work out what the student should be taking at the college level, depending on what they're doing well at and what they're choosing to take at the high school level. I can see the student is taking a lot of kind of like artistic, graphic design, computer graphics type classes. In the senior year, we've got some digital photography, some mixed media classes that are getting some good grades. So we're definitely seeing, I'm seeing a student that should maybe lean towards a communications or a graphic design degree, perhaps, or computer science degree. It seems to be like where that student's strengths are. Going back to their core grades and looking at the Regents exams as well, their Regents average is around an 85, almost an 86. So again, pretty much in line with where their GPA is. So again, that's nice, a nice solid student there, that kind of solid B average. This would be an acceptable student to St. Rose. If they were accepted, then they would receive around a $17,000 scholarship. But we would definitely be looking for a little bit more information from the essay, the letters of recommendation, and just see what's going on in that senior year that may have caused that drop in their GPA. Over to you, Matt.
Okay, thank you. I don't have a lot to add. I will say that I'll echo the sentiments of my colleagues here that no high school transcript exists in a vacuum. Although this session is particular to the review of the high school transcript, we certainly will read the letters of recommendation, see if there are any extenuating circumstances or other things that we should be aware of. But let's assume, for argument's sake, that this application with this transcript, there was nothing extra out of the ordinary, aside from COVID, of course, that we're all dealing with. So, I'm imagining that you signed up for this session wanting honesty from the presenters. So I won't sugarcoat this. I think that this transcript would not be competitive at Skidmore. This would almost certainly be a deny. I think that this is a college-bound student, no doubt, and there are loads of good choices for someone with this transcript. But because we place so much emphasis on getting into higher level classes, this student has handled a number of classes well, but for the most part has not taken that extra step. So to take on the more difficult courses. When we see Regents scores, most of them are good, but some of them are in the 60s. For, again, competitive colleges with relatively low acceptance rates, this is not the profile of an admitted student. So no value judgment here at all. Everybody takes the courses that are appropriate for themselves and applies to colleges with that in mind. But just so you know, this sort of profile really leaves too much of the higher level courses off the transcript. And if we were to see somebody apply to Skidmore with this kind of course selection, they would not be successful in our pool. So while an 85 average is certainly something to be proud of, that is a solid high school average, we're going to look initially and really most importantly first at that course selection. So like I said before, if this student had a number of APs or honors level classes, far more than we see here, and had an 85 average, that is a very competitive applicant in our pool. But given this course selection, again, no value judgment about what this student chose to do, but that would not position him or her well in an applicant pool like Skidmore, and certainly I would think in schools that are even more selective than we are.
Great, thank you both. So now I think we'll transition and review our second transcript that we have here. Let me just zoom in a little bit. All right, there we go. So Matt Cohen, I know we kind of had that order from before, but since you went last, do you want to start first with this one? I think that might offer a good mix up so I don't take all of your talking points.
Okay, sure. Thanks very much. So here is a transcript that, if you take a close look at the course selection, looks different than the first one we saw. And one thing that I'd like to call your attention to is one thing that I believe Matt said, which we definitely agree with, about the trend in GPA. We certainly look for a GPA to be going up. Now, if you take a close look at this student's four-year GPA, it's actually dropped. However, in this case, we would be okay with that, because if you look at the course selection, it makes sense to us perhaps that this transcript has lower GPAs, because 2 APs junior year, 2 additional APs senior year. This student was really willing to take on tougher classes, and not just one. There are 4 APs there. Those are not easy classes, and we would be forgiving of this GPA perhaps dropping a bit. So while I totally agree that trend is important, given this course selection, this student, in our view, would get a bit of a pass, I think, for the GPA to be going down. If you look at the Regent scores, they're all very strong. Down at the bottom on the senior year, I'm not sure if you guys remember exactly what I said or if you have a chart of these new codes, but the one kind of COVID code, for lack of a better term, that appears on this transcript is an ED, which is evidence of learning with distinction. So what that tells us is, even with all of the disruptions for COVID, perhaps this class, because it's the only one listed that way, maybe the way that class was set up just really wasn't conducive to remote learning. Maybe it had particular difficulty with continuity. But even with that, this student got that grade of ED, which is the highest possible. We don't need to bring it back up again, but if we remember from the other transcript, those COVID grade codes were low. So that was saying to us, well, COVID was here, but this teacher was saying basically, well, I know COVID was here, but yet still that student was not succeeding. So I'll say it more as a positive for this student. I'm not sure exactly which classes. Looks like participation of government, if my straight line is correct. So perhaps in that course, there was a particular option. Maybe a teacher was out. There could be a number of things, but this transcript is saying to me, even with that disruption, this student still did especially well in that class. So if this transcript were to come across our applicant pool, I would say that this student is taking difficult classes, handling them really well with a solid GPA. This is somebody who would be certainly very competitive in our applicant pool. Thanks.
Matt, did you want to go next?
Yeah, I'll just, and thank you, Danielle. I'll just cover a couple of pieces and then hand over to you to do your review. Just a couple of things I noticed, and Matt did a great job of summarizing there. The weighted GPA, there's quite a little difference there between the weighted and the unweighted. So again, you can see that the student is doing well in those harder classes. I like the fact that they took a couple of AP classes in their junior year. So that's like taking college level study 2 years early, which really kind of stands out to me. They challenged themselves early, and the grades that they got, a 92 in AP English language and an 85 in AP physics. Bravo to that student. That's a very challenging selection, and they definitely would have earned those grades, and again taking them 2 years early. 5 honors classes, a pre-AP class in English, and taking those AP classes as well in their senior year. So This student is, as we see, they're getting the advanced diploma. So on those harder classes, they definitely challenge themselves. So although their overall GPA has gone down, this student is definitely a very desirable, attractive student to colleges that they're going to apply to. They would be accepted to St. Rose, and their scholarship would be around a $21,000 award. And I'll hand over to Danielle.
Thank you, Matt. So similar to both Matt's, actually, you know, my review of this transcript is very similar. As you can see, you know, although this student did have somewhat of a downward trend as we're thinking about trend, you do see that they are challenging themselves in honors and AP courses. You know, even in 10th grade, they were taking chemistry honors, which I think is something that we don't see a lot of students do. And also I'm looking that in 9th grade, they were taking English honors. So, you know, they really were challenging themselves throughout their 4 years in high school. And that's something to take note of. Again, just a quick look at this transcript without seeing any other application materials. I would say that this student is likely to be admitted into UAlbany. Similarly, they would also be a candidate for our honors college, which is something that not all students are, you know, have the opportunity to do. But again, since this student does have a little bit of a higher GPA, they would be invited into our honors college, which does have some perks in itself. So again, similarly, just looking at some of the other courses that they took, I noticed that they were challenging themselves with Spanish 3 in their 10th grade year, which is something to note as well. So again, something that we really look for is that they are challenging themselves in any kind of way. And I would say for UAlbany's sake, the student would definitely or most likely be admitted into UAlbany. So I don't have too much more to add on that transcript, but I would say a strong candidate and a strong student for sure. All right, so I don't know if either of you have anything else to add in terms of you know, transcripts or anything else, but if not, we can perhaps segue into some questions. I know we were going to save some time at the end for question and answer. So I'll go ahead and just stop sharing my screen here. And I don't know if Brandy is there and wants to help facilitate the Q&A, or if we should just jump right into it.
Yeah, so the first question that came up, it was regarding one of Matt's points earlier about taking harder classes. What about the student who's on honor roll but struggles, who may have like a 504 plan? So would that knock my child out from having a chance to get admitted? They work hard, have mostly A's, but AP and honors isn't really an option. So a honor roll student, but not taking AP or honors, you know, struggles a bit, has a 504 plan.
Well, I think I can jump in on that, since I think it was my point initially. I think what we will do in cases like that is certainly review it on a case-by-case basis. Oftentimes, a 504 plan may be specific to a certain part of the academic sphere. Sometimes we'll be made aware of the fact that numbers are an issue. If that were the case, then we would certainly be more forgiving of math course selection. Sometimes we're made aware of dyslexia and difficulty with reading, or difficulty with reading quickly enough, perhaps, to keep up with some other students. In that case, we may be a little more forgiving with students on the more verbal side of academics. So we will drill down and try to learn what it is the issues, which issues are present. And if this applies to any of you, I would encourage you, to the extent you feel comfortable sharing, include that on your application, or meet with your counselor and have him or her include detail about that. Because often it can be specific to a certain area, and then we'll certainly grant some leeway in those cases in terms of course selection.
No, I think that's great. I was just going to say, we want families to know we cannot divulge to colleges if students have an IEP or 504 plan, but we encourage them, just like what Matt said. I think it opens, up in terms of admissions. It kind of, shows them what their 4 years have been like and can provide more information for them when they review that transcript.
And I was just going to jump in and also similarly agree with Matt as well, in that, we want to know more about the student other than just what we're seeing on the transcript. So again, if that student feels comfortable letting us know, perhaps what any challenges might have been like, again, if they have a 504 or IEP, or just any general learning disabilities or whatever that kind of looks like for that individual student. We want to know as much about that student. Again, not in a judgment per se, but it helps us be able to evaluate the student's application holistically. And it also brings the student to life a little bit more. We're not just looking at a piece of paper. It helps us really understand the whole student.
So the next question is, are AP exam scores on the transcript? Do you look at the exam scores? So we do not include AP scores on our transcripts. I'm not sure if other schools do, but we do not. We leave that up to the students to send directly to the colleges. I guess for the panelists, do you ever get AP scores sent to you guys on the transcripts, and how do you review those?
Yeah, we sometimes get them on some transcripts. It would definitely vary. We may consider it, but being a test optional college, we're definitely looking more at those class grades and averages, which will be there for the AP classes, for example. But then it's nice to know if the student's looking to transfer in those AP classes. It will depend on the score that they get in the exam. Some AP classes, it's a 3 that will be required to transfer in. Some they will need a 4 or a 5 for it to transfer in. And that will literally vary from class to class in the AP selection.
Yeah, we'll grant credit for a 4 or a 5 on any AP exam. And when we see those scores, we really do consider them, because our thought is if you can get a 4 or a 5 on an AP exam, that says something to us about your ability to handle college level work. So I would say if you have scores, definitely look to see which are potentially credit bearing at the schools that you are applying to. And if you have gone over that hurdle, I would say send them along, because that certainly proves to most schools that that you can handle college level work.
And similarly for us, we do accept AP test scores of a 3 or above. We'll take any college level courses of a C or above that will transfer into Albany. So it's not required that a student needs to send us their AP scores. However, it does help us to know how the student has performed on those AP exams. So if a student would like to include those with their application, they're more than welcome to email it to us, and we'll be sure to put that in their record.
Okay. So the next question is for Matt C. What is considered a competitive acceptance rate?
Well, there's no strict definition of it, but I think one thing that's generally agreed upon is colleges that admit fewer than half their applicants is a cutoff line. You often hear, competitive is not an official term, but one thing that I've heard often is schools that accept fewer than 50%. And the majority of schools accept more than 50%. So maybe that might make you feel better in terms of applying to college. It may not be as hyper competitive as it may seem when low acceptance rate colleges grab most of the headlines. Most people don't go to those schools. So I've often heard that under 50% can often be looked at as a cutoff line between being considered competitive. But it doesn't mean the others are non-competitive. I think if I had to say a number, that's often a line that you'll hear.
Okay. Next question is honors college something you need to apply separately for? If you applied and not the honors program, would the college identify and offer you a spot if they thought it was a good fit? And I'm not sure, not all schools I know have honors programs or honors colleges, but
Yeah, I'm happy to address this question for UAlbany. So typically for our honors college, for incoming freshmen, they are invited to the honors college. So it is by invite only, at least as a incoming freshman. And so typically students that are above that 92 GPA will get invited into the honors college. And so the process for that is once a student is invited to the honors college, they will be asked to submit an essay, and that essay is actually separate from the essay that they included initially in their application to UAlbany. From there, we will review the essays and offer the students who we feel are admissible into the Honors College a spot. And again, those students do have some different perks like registering for classes early, having some smaller class sizes, living with other honors college students. So that's for incoming freshmen. Now, if a student wanted to apply to the honors college on their own, there is a separate process for that once they are a freshman at UAlbany and have gone through either their first or second semester. So if they feel like they might be a good fit for the honors college, there is a separate application process that they can go through their freshman year.
The next question is for me. For students who transfer to Saratoga after 9th grade, what's the transcript look like, and will those grades from their previous school be included? Yes, we will definitely transfer any classes that is on a previous transcript from an old school onto their current transcript through Saratoga High School, but it will say for the years that they attended that previous school, will say that they did attend that school. So that school will be listed on the Saratoga transcript as well. Are music and art classes still good to have on a transcript? Is the well-rounded student still desirable?
I would say if you're looking to study our music industry major, then you know, we definitely want to show like evidence and definitely a strong ability. We're looking on the NISMA scale. We look for students with a NISMA level 5 or NISMA level 6 for their audition for our music industry degree. But then overall, you know, outside of looking at those for that major, it definitely is nice to see students that have taken some of those classes. But sometimes it can sometimes inflate their GPA a little bit and ends up coming back down to those core classes again, where we will then kind of drill down to the math, the English, the social studies, the science, and the language grades. So it's absolutely okay to take some classes like those electives to demonstrate your interest, but we will go into those core grades as well.
Yeah, I would add to that. Certainly, the well-rounded student is desirable, and we have terrific arts at Skidmore, so we see this a lot. I think the only time we would get concerned is if there were enough of them that they started to take the place of core classes. If we have a student who only took, say, 2 years of math and really loaded up on art and music, that probably wouldn't end well for them in our pool. There are enough periods in the day at Saratoga that you could continue with the core classes and choose your elective as art or music or theater if that's something that you're really into. It's not to say that if an art or music class took the place of perhaps one core class 1 year, you know, that is not a deal breaker. But when we start to see a pattern of core classes not showing up on the transcript because there are so many arts related courses, that's going to start to make it tough to be competitive in our pool.
Let's see, how important are Regents exams? It looks like they may be canceled 2 years in a row now. We'll see. We still don't know the answer yet, but perhaps. How do you guys view the Regents exams? Do you look at them? Do you consider them, or not really?
We at St. Rose, we definitely consider them. It's nice to look at their averages with their overall GPA. But again, we're looking more at the core classes with the grades that they're getting from semester to semester, looking for those trends. Again, we're test optional, so sometimes it's a little bit more of a supplemental piece of information rather than the priority, which would really be the math, the English, the science, the social studies, and the foreign languages.
I would say similar to Matt as well. We are looking at the final grades in the classes. Certainly, we're not going to ignore those region scores, because I do think it tells us how a student tests, and although we're test optional, tests are certainly a part of college. And so, I think it's important to at least look at them, but it's not going to determine, if a student is admitted versus not admitted. I would say the only really weight I would say that the region scores do have on a student is more so when they are admitted and decide to enroll. Some of those region scores, depending on how a student scores, they may be placed out of certain general education classes at UAlbany. So we do take a look at those region scores a little bit later on. And then there is that potential based on those scores for them to place out of some classes.
Do you apply numerical weights for AP courses to recalculate a student's GPA? If so, is that weighting scheme available on your website, or is it something to ask an admissions counselor?
I can take that one. We don't recalculate GPAs. However, as we review applications, I may sound a little like a broken record here, but that is the very first thing that we look at. So we could, in terms of course selection, so we could have two applicants that have similar averages, but it's very clear to us that one is stronger than the other if they've taken the tougher classes. So there wouldn't be any chart that you could find, and there isn't even one that we're hiding. It doesn't exist, but it still is probably the most important part of our review process. So it's more anecdotal, where we will discuss applicants and trends and say, well, this student with an 85 GPA is very, very different in our view than this other student with an 85 GPA. It's possible that other schools may do that. If you can't find a chart like that, it's certainly appropriate to call an admissions office and ask folks like us, how do you deal with AP classes? I'd like to know where I stand.
At St. Rose, we used to add some weight to a GPA in order to calculate a scholarship. We've stopped doing that a couple of years ago, so we don't do that practice anymore. But we're just looking at those core classes and that GPA, like Matt said.
Brandy, I think you're muted.
Your microphone.
Sorry. This is from a student. I'm taking an early college class through SUNY Adirondack. Would that be considered as good as an AP or honors class in the selection process? Good question.
Yeah, at St. Rose, we would certainly look on that as it's a college level class. Like Danielle said, at St. Rose, it would transfer in with a C grade or higher. But yeah, hopefully it's again like a core kind of level class, or maybe it's a psychology class or a business class, something that's going to benefit them with what they're going to be studying in the future.
All right. And I think our last question is for Matt Cohen. In a typical year, how many Saratoga kids are accepted to Skidmore?
Let's see. I think this is guessing. Probably eight to 10, somewhere in that range, maybe. I mean, it does vary from year to year. There are some years where we may get a long list of applicants, but probably around 8 or so, I would say, are admitted each year.
And I think that is it for our questions. I don't see any more. So I want to thank all of our panelists. You guys were amazing. Matt Cohen, Matt Stabler, Danielle Haft. I'm sorry I said your name wrong before when I introduced you.
That's okay.
You guys always do an amazing job. We're so appreciative of all your help this year. And, you know, if any families have any more questions, please direct them to your counselor. If we can't answer those questions, we're going to call these guys up on the phone or email them directly and ask them for you. So please do not hesitate to reach out to us. Please remember that Thursday night, we have our second part of our college night for parents and students workshops. We have 3 great presentations on Thursday starting at 6 o'clock. The links are on the school website and in the messages that were emailed to you. Thank you, everybody. Have a great night. Stay safe on those roads. And School Counselor Appreciation Week next week. We love cookies. Bye. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Good night.